Today's hand between Patrik Antonius and Isildur 1 is one of the biggest Pot Limit Omaha hands ever played in online poker. Before we get into it, I do want to say I'm going to be extending the offer that I talked about last week for the PLO Upswing course that they put out with Jay Nandez. I had Jay Nandez on the podcast last week where we talked more about the Pot Limit Omaha course that just released. You're going to get extra PLO and GTO Club related content from myself, as well as a copy of my book, Chasing the Poker Dream, when you sign up in the link below. And there's been a lot of interest on that. I'm going to be working a little bit. I'm going to put more effort into the content that I'm going to be creating for that special offer. And that'll be coming out. I'll have that out sometime over the next week or two. And then I'll be adding material to that as time goes on to go along with the course. Also going to be having Fedor Holes on the podcast Wednesday and Sean Deeb on the podcast tomorrow. Let's get into the hand. All right, the hand starts off $501,000. Yes, that's right, $501,000. This was back on Full Tilt Poker, I believe in like 2009. Patrik Antonius starts the hand off with 400 big blinds deep, $400,000. Isildur 1 has $802,000. This match has been going on for hours. Very aggressive dynamic, a lot of 3-betting, 4-betting, 5-betting, and overall an amazing event as a spectator if you were around back in those days. Patrik Antonius goes ahead and open the button with Ace-5, 6-6 with a nut suit. Isildur 1 has Queen-4, 5-3, a little tasty double-suited hand, decides to 3-bet. And obviously, we don't, around here, we don't fold the 3-bets. And Patrik Antonius is not one to fold 3-bets as well. He goes ahead and he makes the call. Now, Queen-4, 5-3, obviously double-suited, beautiful hand. And now I have to admit, my experience playing 400 big blinds deep, effective heads-up Pot Limit Omaha, not very strong. My experience playing this deep at the ring games at 6 max, a bit more experience with that. But either way, this is something that doesn't often come around, especially in this day and age. You're very rarely going to be this deep with an opponent, and when you are on a heads-up table, that means the action's been probably pretty insane, and a lot of variance and a lot of things going back and forth. The dynamic in this match was very aggressive. Like I said, a lot of 3-betting, 4-betting, 5-betting. So Queen-4, 5-3, probably a very standard 3-bet for those that are one in the spot. I think everything's pretty fine. We'll go ahead. Let's see the flop. Flop comes down, Queen-4, 3 with 2 clubs. Patrik Antonius got the nut flush draw, open-ended straight draw, and a backdoor quad draw. Isildur 1 has 3 pair. I think we had a nickname, a Turkish full house. We made up a nickname last time for this one, but he's got 3 pair and 3 backdoor quad draws. It's very rare to make 3 backdoor quad draws, and it's my preferred type of flop I'd like to hit from my hand. Also, he's got the backdoor straight draw. So Queen-4, 5-3, 3-bets pre-flop, flops an above average flop for his hand. I mean, when you 3-bet Queen-4, 5-3, especially this deep, you're not necessarily looking to make that flush draw. You want to flop a straight draw. You want to flop a straight, and 3-4-5 doesn't necessarily always make the nut straight. So it's kind of one of those hands that can potentially get you in a lot of trouble, especially these weaker flush draws with weaker straight combinations as well and weaker 2 pairs. And as you're going to see, that's maybe what happens here. So Isildur 1 makes a C-bet, 15,000 into 18,000. Patrik Antonius decides to raise it up to 63,000, and Isildur 1 calls pretty quickly. Now, I think when you take a look at here and you say, okay, what's happening here? So Patrik Antonius, obviously a pretty strong flop for his hand. Against the exact hand Isildur 1 has, he's 52.6%. So, I mean, is it really that strong of a flop? I think so. Because I feel like when he raises here, it's very, very rarely is he going to get Isildur 1 to come back over the top. I think even with a hand like a Queen-4 or a Queen-3, I think Isildur 1's just going to call with those hands. I think Isildur 1's often going to fold, and we're just going to take our hand down without showdown. There's going to be some times he might call with a... if he does have a hand like a king, queen, something else with a king high flush draw, I don't think he would also go all in. I think he'd probably just call and see a turn. Obviously, if he's got that set of queens, which is very rare, it's very hard to make top set in a 3-bet pot. It's incredibly hard, especially this deep. So I don't think he's going to often have to face a Isildur 1 re-raising him here. So, and like I said, I think he does take the pot down. Now, when you kind of think about, okay, well, what type of range is Patrik going to have here in Isildur's 1 spot? I think it's going to look like especially when we have Queen-4, 3, I think it's often going to look like a hand like we have. A nut flush draw with a pair, whether that's Ace-4, something else with clubs, some type of combo draw, maybe a 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe a 5, 6, 7 with clubs and a wrap that we might not always raise. I think if we have that king, queen, something, maybe with the king high flush draw. I don't know if we always raise here if we're in Patrick's spot. So I think those hands just call. Now I want to think about, maybe what hands would Patrick potentially do this as a semi-bluff or a bluff with. Now, I think a good hand to do it with here is a queen, maybe with some backdoor diamonds. And these hands also work well as calls too. But I think if a queen with backdoor diamonds maybe works better as a call. I think a queen with maybe one club blocker with maybe a backdoor straight draw might work good as a semi-bluff here. Like a 3-4, I think could be a good hand. As often if you call with a 3-4 with nothing to go along with it, let's say you have ace jack 3-4 in the spot with hearts and 3 hearts and one club, this hand's often not going to play that well on many turns except a 3 or a 4. So I'm going to guess an ace too. But that could be a hand we might want to turn into a bluff here. So, like I said, we're potting here. We do want to have, obviously, if you always just have a super strong range, then it's, debatably, you could be easy to play against. Now, I think when he comes this deep, I think Patrick is going to have some bluffs, semi-bluff type hands that he's going to be raising with here. And if he faces any more aggression, he's just going to fold. But I don't necessarily, I don't know. I think I would have 3-4. I might raise 3-4 here. I don't think I would always call, especially against someone who is betting the turn a lot. So let's say your opponent is c-betting at a pretty high frequency after he c-bets, and then he's also turn c-betting on a pretty high frequency, especially when the card isn't connected to the board, or even he might be firing on a lot of cards that do connect with the board. Then oftentimes a hand like a 3-4 or sometimes queen 3, but I think queen 3 is just a little bit stronger depending on what your cards to go along with it are. I think a hand like a 3-4 or a naked queen is going to work better as a raise. Therefore, you don't face that turn aggression from your opponent. And like I said, also it does help you to have a little balance in your range in this spot. But so as played, he makes a raise, and Isildur 1 has a decision, queen 4-5-3. I think his hand is pretty. It's not if you re-raise here and you get it all in, you're probably going to get it all in pretty bad shape. Now he might have, he could have a better queen 4 with a redraw to go along with it, queen 4-5-6 type hand, maybe with clubs. He could have a nut flush draw with that queen in Patrick's hand as well. So yeah, I don't mind calling and then seeing a safe turn, but this is kind of what happens when you 3-bet queen 4-5-3. Sometimes you get a flop like this, and it's sort of knowing how to play these spots and how to play them well and how to make those decisions and also sort of what your opponent's tendencies are. I think, that's going to play a big part to playing this hand profitably or potentially losing a lot of fucking money. So let's go ahead. Let's see the turn. Turn comes down, king of diamonds. Doesn't change anyone's hand on the board, but Isildur 1 decides to go ahead. He bets pot $144,000. Now Patrik Antonius has a big decision. He's got $320,000 left. And now I do want to talk about the way I'm getting into this hand today, because sometimes I have these longer hands where I would sort of just talk out what I figured out, because I sit here, I think about the hands, I go over them, I might talk with some friends, and then I'll make the video. And sometimes I have these ideas for flop and turn and river, and then I end up just sort of getting into it and talking for a while. Now some people don't like that. Whatever, man. Some people really, really enjoy that, though. So I think for an interesting hand like this, I'd kind of like to play around with it a little bit, because it is, you could go so many different ways here, and it's honestly one of those interesting hands I've looked over in recent time. I feel like obviously the stack sizes make it that much more glamorous. So, but Isildur 1 decides to lead here. So we go back and we said, all right, what's Patrick's range on the flop? So we said maybe some naked queens as a bluff. Not always king queen. Probably just calls with king queen. Maybe the king queen 8-7 backdoor diamonds probably just calls that hand on the flop. So he's definitely going to have king queen in his range here. He's obviously going to have those flush draws, and now he's probably going to pick up some potential combo draws too. Maybe like an ace jack 10 type hand. He's still going to maybe have some backdoor diamonds as well here when we don't block any diamonds. And so there's one spot. So it's kind of a situation where if we think he just has more flush draws and has more maybe 5-6 type hands, then I don't mind betting in Isildur's 1 spot. It's going to be super obviously high variance spot. There's going to be a lot of bad rivers for a hand. I don't think that we want, when we check, and we don't want Patrick to check back, although I don't know if that'd be the worst thing, but we don't want to give him a free card. So we're planning to call the flop and then to bet most turn cards that are like this, maybe a king, a 9, a jack, a 10 type hand, and don't see a club here on the turn. But Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, how often are we getting folds from that nut flush draw or the hands that now picked up 2 draws? I don't know, but maybe that's not the worst thing. So he goes ahead, he bets 144,000. Now Patrik has a decision. We kind of go back to what does Isildur's 1 range look like to Patrik on the flop? So we know from other hands that Isildur 1 will call here with a naked queen. A queen jack 9-7, queen jack 9-10, those king queen something something with maybe even no backdoor flush draw. Maybe no in club blockers. He would call with those hands to potentially make a higher 2 pair and win a big pot against queen 4. So I think king queen is definitely going to be a part of Isildur's 1's range here. I think when we have that nut flush blocker, the nut flush draw in our hand ourselves, it's going to make it maybe a little bit more likely that he might have a king high flush draw in his hand, like a king jack 9-10, like I said, or maybe king 4, something like that with clubs, king 3, something like that with clubs. So I think that is going to be a pretty big part of his range. Sometimes we don't have any big diamonds in our hand. He might have a hand like ace, jack 10 type of hand with diamonds. I think his range here is going to not always be these king 4, king queen, king 3 set of kings. I think it is going to sometimes contain a combo draw type of hand, like a top pair or even a queen with a jack 10 with some diamonds. So now we say that, all right, so that's what his range is. Now, what should we do in Patrik's spot? Should we call here? So obviously sometimes when we hit our straight and a diamond comes, we're going to face a bet and we're not going to be able to get valued for it. We might not be able to value bet our hand when check 2, although I think we're going to value bet our hand when check 2 if the diamond does come on the river. I think when a club comes, the pot's so big. Now I think our hand does look like a flush draw when we just call here. So do we always get paid on that club? Maybe, maybe not. But I think we just have too many outs, right? A 2, you could say a 6 as well. A 2, a 6, clubs. There's some cards you could potentially decide to bluff. If a diamond comes and he checks, you could turn our hand into a bluff now as well. So yeah, I think this deep, that much money to play behind, it's going to go ahead and just a call, right? No gamble, no future. You play to win the big pots, man. Who doesn't want to win an $800,000 pot? So Isildur 1 bet that 144,000. Patrik Antonius thinks about it and makes the call. And we go ahead and we see the river. River comes down, 7 of diamonds. Backdoor flush draw gets there. Now Isildur 1 bets out pretty quickly, puts Patrik all in for his last $176,000. Now what, right? So I was thinking, I've been trying to figure out right here is what's going on? Is he bluffing? Is he value betting? So is he potentially wanting to have this hand as a value bet because he thinks he's going to have a lot of bluffs here potentially on the river too? Now, kind of what I mean by that is sometimes when you say, okay, well, how often are we bluffing here? How often are we value betting here? And in theory, you kind of want to split your range up in 2 type of ways. So if Isildur 1 wants to bluff this river a lot, maybe he considers that he wants to have this hand in his range as a value bet. So potentially if he does get hero called by, let's say 3-4, maybe 3-7, 4-7, obviously block those cards. So, but I think this is a bluff, but I don't know what it bluffs off. It might bluff off king 7. I just think if Patrik has king queen, he shoves turn. He has a set, he just shoves turn. It might bluff off 5-6, but I don't think so, because if we have 5-6 in Patrik's spot, we probably have a flush draw to go along with it. And listen, the pot's so big. I think that we just end up calling 5-6 here. If we have it, we say, I think that Isildur 1 can have that queen jack 9-10, might have that king jack 9-10 type hand, might have that king jack 10 clubs. I think he just has a lot of hands that might want to bluff this river. So now I think he also is going to have some diamonds because we kind of went back to the flop. He maybe has, he might have king queen with queen of diamonds here with queen high diamond flush draw. He might have aces with backdoor flush draw here too. We don't, like I said, we don't block any of those diamonds as well. So I don't know. I don't think Patrik's going to fold a flush. If he has diamonds, that means he's going to have reverse blockers to clubs, and there's a good chance Isildur 1 just has clubs here too. So I was trying to think if Isildur 1 would bet king queen here, but I'm not sure how much it actually matters if Isildur 1 would bet king queen here. he might be choosing to bet queen 4-5-3 and then not bet king queen. I'm just not sure exactly. Kind of, obviously we, how can you know, right? It's a very unique and very unique spot. So be interesting to see. What would I do in Isildur's one spot? I imagine I would just check here. I imagine, I don't know if I would have potted the turn as well. I just don't like any turn option. I don't like check calling. I don't necessarily like betting pot. I feel like it gives us a chance to just get a fucking ton of money in completely dead against king queen. So, I mean, yeah, it's just kind of what happens sometimes when you 3-bet this hand pre-flop, is that you get into spots like this where you play these really big pots and you're just sort of betting and praying. And I try not to bet and pray too much, although I certainly do bet and pray pretty often. So, I try to make it a habit, especially in these deep pots. The deep pots are about making the nuts. You want to make the nuts in these pots. And obviously, heads up, your ranges are going to be a bit wider, but still, that's what you're looking for in the deep stack play. Is you want to try to make the nuts, especially as more money goes in. So I think in his spot on the river as played, I'd probably check and hope to get to showdown, and check and then decide. Probably check call and pray for clubs, but either way, I'm not going to be too happy with the decision. Now when he does bet, I think Patrik Antonius, kind of fortunate, he has the 5-6, but he's got that ace-6 of clubs too. But like I said, I think there are some hands that Isildur 1 is going to be bluffing here with on the river. I think he just has. I don't think he would take that turn line with all of his flush draws, all of his, let's say, but kind of think about like let's say queen 9, 10, 8, 10 of diamonds, right? Like, would he lead the turn with that? Maybe, maybe some of those hands, but I just think has more combos of bluffs here than he has combos of diamonds. But either way, in terms of the price he's getting, and you got a straight, you got a crazy player, I mean, I think you just have to click call and pray. And like I said, I don't want the hand to be a call and prayer spot, but that's how it goes. And sometimes, man, you got to pray. You got to pray to God you're correct. You got to pray to God that your opponent has. And obviously, if Isildur 1 is going to be betting queen 4-5-3 here sometimes, then I think we always have to call 5-6 and once again pray. So, I mean, I say that in kind of a joking way, but honest to God, man, you're just fucking praying sometimes. You face a big bet on the river, you're like, oh my, fuck, man. That's just how it is. Whether you're playing 1-2, 2-5, you're playing 5-10, playing any stake, 10 cent, 25 cent online, any stake, this is, when you get deep, it's going to happen to you. So, goes ahead, makes the call, takes down a pot of approximately $783,000 dollars, man. $783,000. So, one of the biggest PLO hands played ever online, taken down by Patrik Antonius. Thanks everybody for watching. Much love. We'll be back tomorrow and Wednesday with podcast. Thursday, Friday, back with PLO hands. Much love.